What up? What up? What up? It's your girl Tania, aka the Cool Auntie, and this is the Cool Auntie podcast. Y'all, I missed y'all. I really, really missed y'all. I love having guests. It feels like a party sometimes, especially if it's a guest that I know personally, and we have history and we get to kind of catch up. But it's something about like just those intimate conversations. Well, some of you have said that you feel this way when like if you text me or if you send me a DM. But I just always feel like whenever we have these one-on-one talks, I feel like you're in my living room and I'm literally sitting across from you. And I feel like those moments, I'm an extroverted introvert, so like having those moments are everything for me. And so while I have loved having guests these past few weeks, I'm going to always love this right here. Forgive my monotone voice, y'all. I'm very transparent about everything. And your auntie's tired. You know what? I'm tired, but it's a good tired. It's a good tired. I was just talking to our producer. Shout out to Brian. He's the man behind the scenes, and he helps me piece this entire thing together. And hopefully I get to see him very, very soon. Shout out to Brian. But me and him, we had a meeting earlier this week, and we were chatting just about how, just a space that we're in. I'm tired, but it's a good tired because I'm excited about all the things that I'm working on right now and just the space that I'm in. It's something about stepping into alignment, right? I don't know about you, but I struggle sometimes with accepting whether or not my desires and the things that I think that I'm good at, the things that I want to do. I struggle with, are these the things that God wants me to do? Are these the things that I'm meant to do? So I know people have that. Like, so it's not just a you thing. It's a me thing too. If I think I've questioned, am I in the right space doing the right thing for a while? And just in the season I'm in right now of feeling like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I'm excited. And because of me being in that space, I want to give y'all everything. Like just you all's responses and your encouragement and your ideas that y'all give me. I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. And I want to do it all. And trying to get it all done before I go back into full-fledged teaching mode in August. It's a lot. But, I've learned it's like learning to ride a bike. It's like learning to walk, right? So it takes time to adjust, and I'm fully transparent in that sometimes I stumble, but eventually your stumbling turns into walking, right? And then soon your walking turns into striding, and then in some seasons that stride turns into a jog. I try to be leery of the sprint because sprints don't last long, right? We all know sprinters, you can probably go a certain distance before you burn out. And so I do believe that sometimes you have some seasons that encourage you to jog, but I'm leery of the sprint because I have almost killed myself trying to sprint for long periods of time. But also in this season, like, again, the more you step into alignment, I'm learning and I'm knowing now who I am and what I'm not, right? And there's something beautiful about getting into that space because, I've turned down a lot of opportunities lately. And if you would have told Tania a couple of years ago that she would be doing that, I'd be like, nah, because a couple of years ago, I was taking anything and everything that came my way. But in this season, God is making things clear to me about what is for me, and where I'm best served, right? And where my light truly shines. And so when I'm presented with the opportunity, even when it's great, it's like, it's great, but no, not for me. And I think the more that you step into who you are and what God's called you to, like you navigate better, you make better decisions. But more importantly, you feel confident about your decisions. And so that all of that kind of just brings me back into the podcast. Can you believe that already we are at the end of season 2? It's almost crazy to me. I feel like every time we get to the end of a series, I'm like, yo, we got here so fast. It seems like, just yesterday we were talking about I ain't got no tea today, y'all. Today I had to pull out the heavy artillery, okay? I got the coffee. But it just seems like just yesterday we were talking about what purpose means, right? I'm about to reopen my booking site and my new website. I'm so excited if y'all see it. I'm about to reopen that and start taking clients again because I had to stop for a second. I'm taking clients, and so I'm super excited about opening it back up. But it made me think about, okay, like what have clients always been asking, right? And it goes back to the beginning of this podcast series about like the what should I be doing? The who am I? Like like where did I go wrong? All of these $1,000,000 questions. But it seems like just yesterday we were talking about that, right? Like just yesterday, talking about, purpose is about being and not doing, right? And that purpose is truly discovered, right? It's truly, truly discovered. Like I'm a firm believer like that God, He's already equipped us with the tools, right? We already have natural abilities and talents and gifts and skill sets that just make us amazing. Ways that we add value to spaces and to teams and to industries. Our secret sauce, right? Our flavor, our seasoning, right? We already have that, and sometimes we mistake those things for purpose. But in reality, all of those things contribute to purpose, right? And they're merely just channels. I always say, and I think 2020 definitely taught me this, is that really purpose is about how you serve the season. How do you serve each role? Because purpose plays out in different ways, right? There's purpose in your family, right? You ever wonder, like, why am I in this family? Why do I have the parents that I have, the siblings that I have? Why did I grow up in the city that I grew up in? All of those things are tied to purpose. The family that you are in, you had to be in to become the person that you are, right? So there's purpose in that, right? But also you were placed in a family because you have a role that you serve in that family, right? Sometimes there's purpose in the roles that we're in, even if you're working in jobs and industries and in businesses and corporations that you don't necessarily like. There is purpose for you being there, whether it's you have a role that you need to play for someone else, right? Maybe God sent you there so you could be a witness or an example or life changing for someone who's there, right? Or there could be purpose in that God is using that place as a launching pad to get you to your next, right? But there's purpose there. There's purpose in relationships. That scripture we always quote, right? But I don't think it always fully sets in, right? But this idea that God was working everything out for our good. So in our relationships and even when they go bad, right? God uses those to teach you what you want, teach you what you need, teach you what you don't want and what you don't need, right? And how you could be better. My own relationships, they've evolved so much the past 3 years, right? And in each of those relationships, not only did I learn about what I need and wanted from other people, but they also kind of showed me what areas I need to work on and how I need to be a better partner, and how I need to be a better friend, right? There's so much purpose in that, and sometimes we get so caught up in purpose being this finite, end all, be all, final destination, singular thing that we don't realize it's a variety of things and that it's always changing, right? So we talked about, the itties of purpose, capacity and capability and ability and quality and vitality, right? And things that we confuse for purpose when they all kind of play their own unique role in purpose, right? And maybe even thinking, and I love, again, being able to talk to some of my friends about just how purpose plays out in other things. But, I even appreciate the folks who've been rocking with the podcast this long and the seasons, right? Because it takes a certain kind of person to get through this. And so before I forget, I want to stop for a second and acknowledge that if you got to this episode, like my hat off to you, not only as the podcast host, not only as your auntie, right, your friend and like your purpose partner, but also as somebody who works in this industry. It takes a certain kind of person to be able to sit down and honestly evaluate what their itties are and what they look like. It's hard. It's challenging to really ask yourselves some of the questions that you're asking yourself. And so when you do, so even when you talk back to you, that's growth, and that's amazing, because there's some people, you ask them a question and they burst into tears. I've literally had clients. I've said, "Who are you?" And they literally, they're because these are questions that are challenging and they're hard. So y'all who are leaning into this season, you're leaning into this process, like, that is dope. And you should be proud, and I am proud of you. Okay? Because it ain't easy. Okay? It ain't easy. I feel like I get clients who come to me and they want me to be a magician, like, all right, Tania, fix me. And it's like, nah, baby. That's not how this works. I started to call myself like the self-help coach, right? Because I've learned in this industry that you can want to help people all you want. But until they want to help themselves, until they are ready to help themselves and willing to help themselves, there's not much you can do, right? And so I am literally just the wall that people bounce their balls off of, right? It's a ping pong game that we play, right? So I'm a self-help coach. I teach you how to help yourself. I help you help yourself, right? This idea of BYOB, being your own bestie. How do you hold you accountable? Because at the end of the day, you control you. Right? One of the best things that God ever gave us, which I've said to you millions of times, is the power of choice, right? And if he gives us the power to choose him, you better believe that he gives you the power to choose the life that you want to live and the person that you want to be. And so you all making this choice to be a part of this journey, to take action and to be active in this process, that is dope. And that should not go unnoticed. That should not go unrecognized. You are awesome. Okay? And so I know it makes me think, and it's so funny. I was actually doing some research, not for, I mean, it's prevalent for this podcast, but it was really for an upcoming speaking event that I have to prepare for. But in just doing my research, I found this really cool fact. So and brace yourself, right? But studies are showing, and research has shown, that people actually have a better understanding, and like, you actually know your purpose when you're very young. They say around like age, between like age 5 and 8. And it's so crazy because like that's where your confidence starts to come in, right? Oh, when you ask somebody, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to be the president, right? Because you dream so big, right? You begin to you step into who you are, and you haven't been tainted yet. So in those moments, in that 5 to 8 age range, you're the most confident because you haven't been tainted, right? And you're very sheltered at that time. And so you're able to dream big and wide. And so research says that in those moments, you're actually the most in tune with who you are. You just don't know it, right? And so that made me think, like, did that happen to me? And how does it change, right? And so I was digging a little bit deeper, and I found out that, like, what happens is that once we start to experience things like rejection and projection, it starts to change how we see ourselves. I look at me, people always think, Tania, you're just so confident. You're just so cool. And not always. But back in the day, like when I was younger, I was so confident. You asked me what I wanted to be? Honey, a lawyer, the president. I wanted to be Oprah. Okay, I wanted to be Oprah. We trying to be Oprah. To me, it isn't a job. Oh, but it is. Right? And I wanted to do it. But over time, I think entering spaces and just not feeling accepted or feeling understood or seen, it took a toll on me. I think that's why I always tell people, like, words are so, so powerful. Especially when you hold a certain position in life, when you are a parent, when you are a teacher, when you are a church leader, or like a neighbor. Especially when it comes to children, your words hold weight. Because to them, what you say is Bible. And so whether you're speaking life or death, that's why the scripture says, out of the mouth comes life and death, because what you say, whether people show you in that moment or not, what you say has the power to control about themselves. And we can't take that lightly. I've shared my story several times, whether it be in trainings or in my speaking engagements, even in coaching, about how when I was younger, around like elementary, middle school, I started to feel like I had a bomb strapped to my chest. Like I was scared of me because I was encountering people who made me feel like I was too much. I had teachers who would be writing notes home to my mom, telling her to tell me to tone it down and to turn everything off. You know, having people say, you're too this, you're too that, you're not enough this, not enough that, and just feeling so different. And don't get me wrong, I did have I had a few amazing teachers, and I had my mom, people who were present to kind of speak life into me. But it's almost like this idea of I had more negative voices than I had positive. And so when you're young, you don't know how to filter. And so I went through a season where I was afraid of me. Come here. You know, we transparent. He's he keeps moving and he got that little collar on and he's making too much noise for me. Honey. Y'all wanna say hi to your cousin, Jeffy. Say hey, boo. You so wishy-washy. You not gonna say hey? All right, bye. Right? But, well, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh. Right? But, like, I really was afraid of me. And so, this is also, I think, fast forward to now why I am mindful and I don't really care about people's opinions, because you can't really have an opinion about me if you don't know where I come from and you know, and what I've been through. When you've been rejected, and I know I'm not the only one, but when you've been rejected enough, you start to not want to show who you are. You know, and so people are like, you know, Tania, you're very private. Tania, I don't share. Because when I did share back in the day, people were so quick to tell me what was wrong with me. So I stopped sharing certain parts of me with certain people. And even now, I'm a lot more open. If you follow me on social media, shameless plug _ the Cool Auntie. I'm a lot more transparent and open and authentic now. But there was a period in my life where I was like, I ain't showing nobody nothing, because if they can't appreciate me, it was a self-preservation thing. It wasn't really a punishment to others. And it wasn't that something I wanted to do, but it was the only thing that I could think of that kept me safe. The parts of me that I wanted to hold on to, safe, you know. And whereas now I fast forward after, you know, doing what doing the work to be more emotionally intelligent and more emotionally healthy. Now I know how to set parameters, right? I have a fence. I have a gate versus a fence, right? Versus a wall, where I am just now more intentional and more selective about who I let into certain parts and who do I give certain access to. You know, but when we're growing up, we don't have that. So we let and we take on any and everything that's given to us, right? And so just like that with me, the same for you, right? If you go back in your childhood, so I always say, you know, do that timeline activity if you haven't done it yet, but go back in time and go back to when you were young and when you had the space and the freedom to think big. What were some of the goals that you had? Some of the dreams that you had? Because I can almost guarantee that's where, like, somewhere wrapped in that is what you're meant to do. I think over time we might have tried to do those things, or maybe we shared our dreams and our goals with people and they shut them down, right? I think about the story of Joseph and about how he had those dreams, the dreams that ended up coming true in the end, right? But when he was sharing them, people were rejecting his dreams and they were insulted by his dreams, even though he didn't mean to insult them, right? And so just like with him and even with me, the same for you, right? That you had this idea of who you were, right? And you loved who you were. And somehow along the way, you experienced hurt and rejection and pain, right? And it warped and it changed who you thought you were, you know? And so a lot of this process, and we talked about this before, as you're going through your stages of identity development, right? Is really, a lot of it is just unlearning. It's taking the time to sit and to really think about, okay, what has actually happened to me and what do I need to unlearn, you know? And so it was great to kind of go through this process with you. And I have a treat for you that I can't wait to share in a couple minutes, but that I've been working on for you all. But to go through that process. And then we sat down with a few of my friends talking about like some of those cultural buzzwords that we hear that I think sometimes we allow culture to define for us instead of us defining them for ourselves. So it was great to have those conversations and think differently about things like entrepreneurship and success and wealth, and authenticity, because everybody will tell you what they mean, and they'll tell you what it means something, and they go and show you that it means something different. So I really do hope that these past few weeks that you've been listening, but not listening to adopt someone else's definition, but listening to as a way to kind of get context so that you can form your own, because you do have the freedom to form your own. What success and authenticity and leadership and entrepreneurship looks like for me may not be the same for you. And that's okay, because I can only think of it and look at it from my lens, right? And like I always say, can't nobody beat you being you, and can't nobody beat me being me, right? That's why I say stay in your lane. I stay in my lane, okay? Because ain't nobody, you can't be in my, you couldn't be in my lane if you wanted to, right? And vice versa. And so, a lot of the past few weeks have been about just how does life, how does society, how do people get in our way, right? But I wanted to kind of spend some time today, and hopefully if you have your phone with you or paper or pencil with you, I want you to start writing some of these things down, because I want to talk about some of the ways that we get in our own way of discovering purpose, right? Because I'm a firm believer that there are going to always be things in life that you can't control. But there's also a lot of things that again, that power of choice that you can control. But things that I think pop up in our lives that alter the way that we see purpose, right? Or prevents us from recognizing purpose when it's smack dab in our faces, right? And so these are also more itties. Like I feel like when you look into it, there are so many itties out there that I want to talk about, but I want to spend a little bit of our time today talking about the itties that hinder our ability to see and recognize and purpose when God's trying to show it to us, right? And so we've already talked about the number one primary one, and that's identity, right? It's how we see ourselves, right? Our self-worth. Sometimes purpose, it's like you ever have an idea that scares you, or a goal or a dream that scares you, right? And you can see yourself doing it when you close your eyes, but when you open your eyes, you're like, I don't have what it takes to do that, right? And that comes from your identity, how you see yourself, right? Many of us aren't walking in purpose, not because we don't know what it is, but because we don't believe that we can actually be that person, that we can actually accomplish that thing. And so as I'm telling you to write these things down, be thinking about, okay, how does my identity influence how I see purpose in my life, right? Another really big one is priority, what we deem important. I was just telling, Brian, the same conversation we were having. I was telling him that I'm looking forward to, I'm taking a brief social media hiatus. I know it's crazy because, society and the algorithm will tell you, oh, you can't take a break. As someone who prioritizes self-care, and I preach self-care, I don't believe that. First and foremost, my God is bigger than the algorithm, right? That's number one. Number two, if people are going to rock with you, they're going to rock with you, period. Whether you need a couple of days or not, right? But the reason why I was taking a break is because we can easily become obsessed, and we can start placing value on things, more value than we need to on things. And I hit a season where I was so obsessed about finding my voice and my structure and my tone on social media that it took me away from what I should be prioritizing, right? Things that are going to actually allow me to step more into purpose, And so I feel like just like with that, the same thing can be for you. Sometimes purpose, and you're someone who's saying, "Oh, I want to discover my purpose," right? But when you actually look at what you prioritize in a day, what you make time for in a day, you don't mean it, right? That's why I go back to that idea of I'm leery about, and I'm actually like, how people change their pricing every year. I've changed my price point for coaching because I feel like sometimes it helps you weed out who's playing and who's serious, right? You always, if you want to know where someone values, you look at where they invest their time and their money. Where someone spends their time and their money, that's what they prioritize. That's what they value. And so if you're somebody who's saying, "Oh, I want to know my purpose," but you don't actually make time and you don't actually invest time and money into it, I might challenge you and say maybe it isn't as high on your list as you say it is, right? If healing's important to you and you don't spend any time, mind you, everything doesn't require money, right? There are so many, like this podcast, it's free. There's so many things out there you don't have to pay for, you know? But are you making intentional investments? Because mind you, both time and money are the two most valuable things. Well, not money per se, but time is the most valuable form of currency. And so where's your time going? And if it's not going into you investing in yourself, I would encourage you to stop saying that you're discovering purpose, because you're not. Right? Love you, but right? We honest in here, right? Hot. What does Mike Todd say? We hot, right? Humble on what is it? Humble or honest, humble, open, transparent, right? Right? You know, I think of the next one, speaking of money, security is also a thing that kind of gets in the way of purpose, right? We know what we want to do, but because we value stability and being financially secure, we question if that's right. I'll be fully transparent. When I first started college, I was an accounting major. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I've always known I wanted to be a teacher, but getting to college, I'm like, okay, crap. When I learned how much money teachers made, I'm like, oh, man, I can't do that because I have a lifestyle. Okay, honey, I like nicer things, and that ain't going to cut it for me, And so, but mind you, too, one thing about me is that I can do something that I don't like for a short period of time, but longevity-wise, eventually, if my heart isn't in it, you don't get the best of me. So I gotta reel myself back. So eventually, it took me only a semester of accounting to realize, this ain't for me. And I left, right? Especially, mind you, if you knew my relationship with money, it's like, sis, now you know better than that. Right? But just like with me, and just like in that scenario, many of us, we know what we want to do, but because we don't see the monetary benefit, we don't see the security or the stability of it, we shut it down, and we decompress, and we force ourselves to not want that thing because we don't see it, right? But one thing you hear all the time, but it's so true, and I'm seeing it play out in my life, is that when you do what you love, the money will come, right? And we're seeing that all over the place. People get paid. A kid is out there making $5.6 million opening gifts on YouTube. And if they don't open your mind to what you can do and how you can monetize and make money, baby, I don't know what to tell you. Right? But it's easy to have security get in the way. Another thing is popularity, right? Because we care a lot about what people think. Again, it goes back to identity. And we care about what's trending, right? Right? I have an influencer because I can't stand social media. It's too much sharing. A lot of work. And I'm real private, right? I like these, and this is it for me, right? But we get caught up sometimes in what's popular and what everyone's doing, what people think is cool. That again, we shut down what we know that we're destined to do, right? Mind you, not realizing that maybe you aren't popular with this group of people, right? But to each of us, we're called to somebody. We're called to something and to people. We all have our people. And when you start to step into who you are and step into purpose, your people find you. And so you're right. Maybe it won't be popular in a certain industry and for a certain group. But if it's not popular in that group, it's because they aren't your people. And they aren't who you were created to it's not who you were created to serve, and that's okay. Right? But again, we let popularity sometime and what's trending and what's cool and what's in deter us from what we know we're being called to do. I think complexity is another idiot that plays a part, right? In that sometimes, I know about y'all, I get anxiety. Like I'll make a to-do list of all things I have to do, and then I get overwhelmed by mind you, I make the list to help me, but then I get overwhelmed when I see how many things are on the list, right? So some of us are like, I want to do that, but it takes too much, or it seems too complex, or I don't know what I'm doing, It's like everybody wants to, people want to be doctors and lawyers, but they don't want to go to school for 7 years. You know what I'm saying? Or 10 years, right? And that's really what separates the good from the great. People who are willing to lean into a process and to do it even when it's challenging. But what I'm learning even in this process is that you can't avoid it. Anybody who wants success, There's no such thing as an overnight success, you know? Everything I've earned, people may think that, say it's easy, but it's not. It's tough, and I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't complex. But again, this idea of God, you lack no good thing. So all this, it is complex, but if it's what you're meant to do, baby, some parts of it just come naturally. There's some things that just come naturally to me. And it's also how I know that I'm walking in purpose. Even for you, I challenge you. There's always going to be a complex part of purpose. It's going to always be an area, a gray area, but that's where God comes in. He wouldn't give you a purpose that you don't need him for. Right? So it's always going to be an area where you're like, I'm unsure. However, he did give you power and authority, which I'm going to get to later, to be able to, really step into what purpose is for you. And so not to be deterred by complexity, right? Or our next one, adversity, because those are inevitable, right? Many times we're walking in purpose, right? Even now I'm full transparency. It happened to me when I first started the podcast. And I ran into a couple of snags. I'm not going to lie. I had some doubts, and I almost said, I don't want to do this anymore. Because, right, we sometimes think, oh, it must be a sign. It must be confirmation that it's not for me. It's like, no, adversity builds character. The same way that you need to strain muscles to build them. Adversity builds character. It's in all the scriptures, right? About how, endurance, God uses endurance, and he uses pain and trial and tribulation, right? To generate patience and build our faith, right? With adversity, one of my mentors always says, more of anything is more of everything, right? And so you get to understand and learn who you are when you look at how well you deal with the bad that comes with the good, because it's always a downside. I don't care what industry, I don't care how easy and how sexy it may look online. There's always things that you're like, I gotta do that. Mind you, there are things like ambiguity, right? So I have people on the opposite side who like, Tania, like, I don't know. Like, I'm in an I don't know phase. Maybe you haven't been thinking as deeply about purpose as you say, right? Maybe you haven't been asking these questions. And so you don't really know what you're doing or how to start or how to do, right? And I would even challenge that maybe it's because you're relying on your own strength, right? And that's the one thing that God says don't do. Don't rely on your own strength, right? And so how are you tapping into mentors? One thing that I'm really intentional about in this season is finding mentors that really help me, because that's what they're for. A mentor is a person who's been through it already. And because they've been through it already, they can provide guidance for you so that you don't have to learn by experience, right? If you already touched the stove and you got burnt, why do I have to touch the stove to realize that it's hot? It's like, no. Can I learn from your burn too, love? Might save me not only save me some time, but it'll also save me a burnt hand. Thank you. Appreciate you. That's what mentorship is. I love mentoring. I love things like the podcast, because my thing is, if you can, I didn't go through what I went through for nothing. And so if I can stop someone from burning their hand, my burnt hand doesn't feel like too much anymore. Right? And so even with that same scenario, going back to season 1 of Broken Crayon Still Color, your story, your purpose, and I think back to what Andre said in our first episode of this season of your purpose is wrapped in your story. So that while you may not have full clarity about how it might play out and where to start, you've already been through it. So draw in from what your experiences are. I think another thing that gets in our way is probability, right? Kind of going, it's almost like we doubt ourselves of like, nah, like this can't happen. I'll tell you all the time, I struggle with this, and I prayed consistently, like, God, please help on me and work on me with this. But I can always see it, right? And I know it's possible, but sometimes I struggle to believe that it's possible for me, right? Goes back to that whole childhood thing of when you hear you being too of this and too much of that, and you experience so much rejection, you wonder, like, can I even make it that far? Will people support me that much? I purposely, when I launched this podcast, I purposely didn't share it with friends and family because I didn't want to set an expectation on family and friends to share it and have them disappoint me and not share it or have them reject it. So instead, I just put it out and didn't pay attention to anybody's feedback because I didn't want that to happen. But we can easily get caught up in that, right? Wondering and trying to think about, okay, well, what does it happen and how realistic can this be? But at the end of the day, you can't control that. God says to worry about today because tomorrow has its own concerns, but also you can't control it. You know, my birthday's coming up. I'm so excited. You know what? I have taken my birthday for granted every year. But after what we've experienced what I've seen in this past year, and just what I've gone through, man, I don't care if nobody's around to celebrate it, man. I'm celebrating my birthday because tomorrow's never promised. And the same for you. You can't, there's no thinking about something. I mean, we plan a lot. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still plan because not planning to, failing to plan is planning to fail, right? However, there's only but so much you can plan and prepare for because tomorrow was never promised. And so if you're somebody who probability is really getting in your way and you stepping and walking and recognizing purpose, I will let you know, baby, there's no dice in this thing. You ain't never going to know. Only person who does know is him. Which is, again, if your dream, if your goal, if your ambition, if your dream and your idea of purpose, you can do it by yourself and you can just manifest it, it ain't big enough, baby, and it probably ain't right. You know? I think that kind of boils down to the last thing that I feel like really, really mind you, I'm sure there's a million other things, but the last itty, one that I also had to overcome and still working through that because never fully, healing is a forever journey, right? Purpose is a forever journey. Self-discovery is a forever journey. So always working on it. But this idea of dignity, pride gets in our way, honey. And it mind you, it was existing and it was a thing even before the pandemic. But being in the house and being on social media constantly, it's even worse, right? Us being afraid to fail and us being afraid to fail in front of people, us wanting to have everything perfect and to have a good show and a good aesthetic, right? That prevents us many a times of walking in purpose because it's ugly. Right? Me and Brian were just having this conversation of I was very transparent in the beginning about, no, we're going to grow together. Because you're going to see it. The one thing about me, you ain't never going to find me in the same place that you found me before. I'm always moving, right? This train is always going, right? And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't just present. I didn't want to come out with just the best. It's no, I want you to watch this journey with me. When I post things online, I don't delete them if they go bad, if they don't pop. No, I want you to be able to go back and look at my story and see the journey. There's power in people seeing your journey. And if you're only waiting until it's perfect, and if you're only waiting until you get to the end of something or you accomplish something, you're missing out on purpose. People need to see it. Think about you. You like to watch things that make you feel human. People who make you feel human. Right? You don't want to hear from somebody who already got it. Okay, well, that's irrelevant to me. I want to hear how you get out the mud. I don't like taking advice from somebody who had two parents in a trust fund because I can't relate, baby. I ain't had neither of those things. I want to know who got it out the mud, who failed 15 times, who lost themselves and had to come back. That's what I want to hear. Right? And just like with that, people want to hear your story too, the ups and the downs. And so you're probably all right, Tania, well, if that's all things that hinder us when it comes to purpose, how do I know that I found when I found it? I'm gonna say you won't, because purpose gonna find you, baby. And you'll recognize that purpose found you because you'll start to see some other itties pop up. Right? You Tania, more itties? Yes, honey. More itties. Go ahead and draw a slash, a dash on your paper. Go to a new note page in, your iPhone, or if you've got an Android. You can't be trusted, but you could still be a part of this activity. I'm joking. I love y'all. Although I don't text in green now, for real. I don't text in green. You know, but when you start walking in purpose for real, you'll find it, right? You'll find it back because you start to see some things. Number one, you'll see authority, right? That power and that confidence. I can't tell you, even like today, I don't have my headphones on today, but I'll tell you there are times where I'm like super anxious about, Tania, what are you going to say? How are you going to say it? You know, I'm not going to lie, I was so tired. I'm like, Tania, like, how are you going to push through this thing? So I just prayed, like, God, get me out of my body. Get me out of my own way. But something about putting on those headphones, man, push and record, God gives me authority. Write that down. It's the first itty you get. Authority, that power, that confidence. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I believe that I have it. I'm anointed and I'm called to do this. You know? And so I don't always know what I'm going to say, how I'm going to start, how I'm going to end it. But it's when I put those headphones on, it's almost like he just takes over my body. And the same thing what happened to you. It's like it's going to be like second nature. You're going to just know what to do. You ever been in a situation or a thing, you just like, I don't know how I knew what to do. I just knew what to do. That's authority he gives you. That's purpose, baby. Because you don't get that about everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something that I'm like, You ever been in a store and you like, so it leads me actually to the next itty, which is responsibility, right? I'll be out and about and it's like, it's crazy because like I don't have any kids, but I have this natural, I don't know why. I think because I'm a teacher and I have a dog, I have a maternal instinct. So I'll be in the store and I see a kid acting up and it ain't my kid, but I'll get him together. Hey, put it back. Shut it up. You know, sit down. It is not even my kid. You know, and you know what's so crazy? The parents will let me. I never forget. This white lady was in the store behind me, and she had 2 kids, and they were acting a fool. I mean, I tell y'all, if my mom had had me like that, she would have choked me out. And the lady looked so stressed, like she wanted to just leave them kids in that car, get in her car, and drive away and never come back. And I had my headphones, but the one little boy was screaming so loud, I heard him over the song that I was playing. I said, I put pause. I said, hey. Didn't your mom tell you no? He like, I said, didn't she tell you no? He was like, yes. Then put it back. I said, now you sit here. Look at your mom's face. Does she look happy? He's like, no. I said, because the way that you're acting. Did she teach you how to act like this? He like, no. I said, then why are you acting like that? Embarrassing her in this store. I said, then look at your little sister in the cart. She's following your behavior. So because you acting a fool, she's acting a fool. Is that a good big brother? He's like, no. I said, then act better. Be a better example. Honey, he was terrified. He looking at his mom like, save me. She looking at me like, thank you. Right? But it's because I have a knack for holding people accountable, but in a loving way. You know, and so God will give you authority and responsibility over things naturally. I think about like Jesus at the wedding, his very first miracle. All his mom said to him was, they ain't got no more wine. And he got so out of his body, like that ain't my concern. She like, yeah, it is. All right, y'all follow his lead. Because when, like, if you ever have things that just get on your nerves, things that you notice that nobody else notice, things that you care about, right? Because like other people who would have sat in front of that lady and just talked shit about those kids in their head and got in their car and drove away. But me, I had to say something. It's like this innate, I gotta say something, right? And just like I have it about that, y'all have it too. There's things like that just irritate you, that get under your skin, things that you notice when you meet a person. Like, I don't know why, but I'm really good at really just being in tune with people's energies. You know, I'll ask a question. People are like, Tania, how did you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I can just look at a person, like look in their eyes and just, I feel like I know you forever. Don't know why. That discernment. It's not my job to know why, but it is my job to use it. right? Which brings me to my third point, and that's authenticity, right? God isn't going to call you to a thing. He isn't going to make a thing your purpose if you can't be yourself and do it. You know, I'm not gonna lie, when I first became a teacher and I first started, kind of doing my coaching and my leadership thing, I was insecure because I didn't see anyone who looked like me. And it took me a while, I'll be honest, to fully step into who I am, you know? But it's crazy because now when I have speaking engagements and I have coaching feedback surveys and I look at them, the thing that people love the most about how I do what I do is my authenticity and the way that I do it and how I bring me to it, which only gives me more fuel and encouragement to keep doing it that way. So same for you, right? Whatever you're called to, if you can't be yourself to do it, it ain't for you. So again, it goes back to who are you? Because in your purpose, you're able to show up as your full self. Which again brings to my next one. That's clarity. I go back to the beginning of the episode, I talked about how I'm in this season of knowing who I am and what I'm not, and what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. The more you step into purpose, you start knowing, okay, that ain't for me. And it's not just, I'm talking about all these things. It's not just an occupation or a vocation. It also relates to relationships. The more I start stepping into who I am, the more I know what friendships are not for me. They always say that, you're growing in your faith when your prayers change. I used to pray for God to, to bring me good friends, or to pray for God to kind of give me discernment about friends. Now, there's just some things that I know, for me, I know that I value honesty. I'm too honest. Number one, I'm too honest, but also it's hard for me to recover and to bounce back from people who lie to me. And so when I meet a person and they seem ingenuine, or like I feel like they're lying about who they are, it's just a no from me. You can't be my friend, because I can already see that being a challenge. But because I know what I need now. I know who I am and what I need. Sometimes we be like, okay, like we know we need honesty. We know we need trust, or we know we need communication, but we'll date a person who don't communicate or who lied. It's like, but baby, you knew that that's what you needed. So why'd you even go into that, right? The more you know who you are, the more you start walking in purpose, the more clear you on what's for you and what's not for you. And I think that brings me to my last thing, and that's specialty. I go back to, again, like sometimes I think with social media, we get pressured a lot to be like people and to do things like people. But at the end of the day, a person can do the same thing as you, but when you know who you are and what you're called to, you don't even care. There are other podcasts out there, and I'm pretty sure they do the same thing that I do. But you know what? They don't do it like me. I know that. And again, it's not I think we mistake, especially for Black women, we mistake arrogance. We mess up arrogance and confidence a lot. It's like, no. I believe that I am great. But I don't believe that I'm better than you. I just love me a lot, and I think that I'm great. And if my greatness offends you, that's a personal problem, baby. But I don't think that I'm better than you or that you're less than me. I'm just great. And you got to think that way, right? So the idea of with purpose, the more you start operating in a mindset of like, I have a specialty, I have a gift, I am different, I am unique, I add unique value. That's purpose. When you can see that. I was reading and I read in Matthew 5 about how God says we are to be light. I was watching a TikTok, and he was like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I glow. And I loved it. And I can't wait to remake this TikTok because it's me. What do you do for? I glow, baby. I shine. That's what I do for a living. And I love that for me, right? Because we're supposed to be light. People can't see you if you're not light. Especially when we live in a world where everybody's so dark. People are lost, y'all. People are inside with glasses on, stressed. And sometimes all a person needs is for you to be light. I can't tell you. I be having people at work. I work at a university. Tania, I just love your energy. You just make a meeting better. I be like, thanks, sis. I didn't want to be at last meeting, but I appreciate you for that. And I didn't do anything special. It's just I was light. Because when you know who you are, you bring something different in every room. They're never going to see anything like you, because when you know who you are, you bring something different to the room. And if you're always trying to conform and be like everyone else, you'll be like everyone else. You'll be a wallflower. And I ain't no wallflower. I'm light. You are light. You're light in that job. You're light in that family. You're light in that relationship. You're light in that city. You're light in that organization. You're light in that school. You're light in that neighborhood. Love, in that industry. You are light. And it's not a one moment thing. You're not a light just one time. No, you are constantly a light, whether people acknowledge it or not. You know? And that's why this re-up series was so important, because we had to use this time to really just filter out what you're not. So that you can enter, mind you, we in Q3 now, y'all, okay? We are locked and loaded, which means that right now, you got to be thinking already. If you are not thinking about January 2022, you're already behind. You don't wait until January to think about January. We think about January now. Because what you do in the next few months will determine what January looks like for you. And so the pandemic, it put a lot of stuff on us and in our way. It was a lot of distractions and just mess. And so we needed the season 1 and season 2 just to heal and get things out of our way. Remove the distractions so we can be clear. So we can be light. And so as we wrap up this last season, I want to ask, I always give y'all homework. And so my homework for you is 2 things. My first homework for this week is thinking about how can you be light, or how are you already light? That could be applied to your job. That could be applied to your relationship, to your household, to your neighborhood, your family. How can you be light this week? It don't have to be nothing big. You don't got to throw no parties. You don't got to be, buying gifts. But just, what are the small ways that you can be light? And try to show up as light and do that consistently this week. That's for number 1. Right? Number 2, be thinking about how you can get to know yourself more. Which brings me to my surprise. I've been getting so much great feedback from folks about this series, especially those earlier episodes when we were talking about identity development. And so I created, especially this chart. I had some people saying, like, Tania, I drew your chart in a book. Or they're showing me a picture and they were having the chart and their iPhone. It's like, hold on. So I did something crazy and I love it. But I created a workbook for folks. And it's primarily for the people who get the first dibs. I'm not doing a special campaign or a marketing campaign. It's primarily for my folks who lock in to the episodes and the seasons. And guess what? It's totally free. I walk you all through just thinking about what identity it looks like for you. That idea of self-concept, we break that down and we explore it. And so that is available on my website. And so next week, gang, 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 when I show you the website. I don't know why I'm singing. I love to sing and dance. So I do that when I'm excited. Right? But you have it. You have access to it. It is totally free. I want you to take that workbook and start doing that work. Remember, like I said, where your priority, where your time and your money goes, that's what's priority for you. And I don't know about everybody else, but we ain't got time to waste. You ain't got time to waste. There are people out there waiting for you to show up for them. So stop playing and get that workbook and start doing that work. So that's number 1. On top of that, when that website drops next week, gang, gang, Millie. I'll also be reopening my power hours. which is coaching sessions with me. One of the great things about our coaching sessions, so I'm sure I mentioned this all to you all, but I'm a certified Gallup strengths coach. And so as a part of those power hours, right, if we call it power hour because I want you to leave better than how you came in, right? I want you to leave feeling more empowered than how you felt coming in. And so you have this questionnaire that you give me to kind of give me some context, right? We kind of dive deep into just your past experiences and what you really want out of a coach or out of a session. We set an action plan, but also you will get access to your top 5 strengths, right? The 5 things that you do near perfection without thinking. And I even talk to you and show you about how do you use it and allow it to show up in your everyday life. And so those are only limited spots. Y'all know it's about to be August, and August is when school starts. And as a college professor and director, that's when I literally, between August and October, honey, good luck if you catch me, okay? And so slots are very much limited. But for my folks who are like, you know what, Tania, I'm ready to invest the time, I'm ready to invest the energy, that is for you. But also, you will not regret it. I promise you, okay? You listen, purpose is like a boomerang. There's no magic behind it. It's design, right? If you look at the boomerang, if you could ever look at the boomerang, I'm not sure if you ever done that before, but it is the way it's shaped. It's designed in a way that when you throw it, it has to come back. The way that it's shaped, when you throw it, it's designed to come, it's designed to spin the block. Just like that, purpose is designed to spin the block, right? God blesses you so that you can be a blessing. God deposits in you so that you can deposit things into others. Okay, so when you invest in yourself, honey, it just gives you more power to invest in other people. And you can unlock all that you want to unlock, but you got to prioritize it and you got to make the investment. And so whether you're doing that with our free things, because I know everybody ain't got it. Listen, I know sometimes to me I can't give you what I ain't got, and I know that. I've been there, okay? I've shared my story with y'all. I've been hungry. I know what it's like to not have it, you know. But there's free and again, there's some things that we offer at a higher level when you're ready to make those real serious commitments. Because also, you say that, but then you go buy some sneakers. You eat out every day, right? We waste money in the club, so we spend money where we prioritize and what we value. So that's one thing, but that's one thing. But platform, just make the investment, okay? And so my last request, and I usually don't ask you all to do this, but I want to. But as you are indulging in the new website and you're looking at the workbooks and the power hours and you're following, mind you, I do encourage you as you're doing the workbook, go back to some of the earlier episodes and replay them. But as you're doing it, if you see the transformation, if you're getting the clarity, if you're loving the experience, tell me, but also tell somebody else. Share it for me. I'm in this season where I want to try my best to get in front of as many people as possible. And I can't do it by myself. But y'all are connected. I'm connected to you, and you're connected to your people. And so whatever, if you feel like it's going to be valuable to someone, right? If you have friends, families, colleagues, students, peers who you're like, Tania, they're going through this too, and they would love to be a part of this, share it. Okay? Share it. Because relationships are so, so important. They're crucial. Okay? Just like with you all sharing, the relationships are the only thing that have the ability to hinder and help you in your journey. Right? Remember I said that power of choice and you having that control? You can control a whole lot of things, but relationships have the power to make or break what you are doing. Which is why I'm so excited to bring you our next series. Okay? That's right. We are talking about relationships. Now, I'm no expert. And I'm a firm believer of I don't speak on things that I don't know. And so I'll definitely be bringing in some of my friends and some guests to put us on game. But it's definitely a season you don't want to miss. And so I am, yes, looking very much forward to my mini hiatus and this mini break, but I'm looking even more forward to watching you all dive into this workbook, dive into the power hours and some of the great content we have online. But also, I can't wait to tap into this new series with y'all because it's about to go down, okay? 2021 ain't seen nothing yet, and that's for me and for you. All right? And so, you already know what time it is. You know, I gotta get ready to go, but so do you. And as always, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I love you. If you haven't heard that this week or today, it's I mean that when I say it. Like, I'm saying it with my eyes, with my voice, with my smile, baby. Whether I know you personally or not, I love you. And I'm invested in your success, okay? We're gonna get this. We're gonna get through. We're gonna do this thing, okay? Together. All right? Love you. Call me back.